Let's build Erza Scarlet from Fairy Tale in Dungeons & Dragons. Honestly, the hardest part of this is the whole donning and doffing armor super quickly, but I have a weird gimmicky hack that might work. We also need the ability to fly, have a bunch of weapons swirling around us, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's go ahead and dive in. I was going to go with Aasimar for the race because that would cover some flying ability, which we would need as Erza. However, she is very obviously a human, and I want to stick true to character. Plus, there's a little gimmicky thing I can pull off right from the start. So we're going to go human, and we're going to choose human variant. This is going to give us a feat, and I'll tell you what that feat is in just a second. Then when it comes to some stats, we're going to min-max a bit and max out our strength, constitution, and wisdom, bringing them all to 15, and then we get to boost up our strength and constitution by 1 point each, thanks to being a human variant. Then when it comes to a starting class, because we will be doing a multi-class to pull off the ridiculousness that is Erza Scarlet, we need proficiency with basically everything. So we're going to take the starting class, Fighter. This gives us proficiency with all weapons, all armor, as well as saving throws and strength and constitution. And now that we have all those proficiencies, let's talk about what that feat is that we were going to grab from being a variant human. Because we have proficiency in all the armor we could want, but we need to be able to get in and out of it because Erza's magic is all about summoning weapons and armor into existence, especially immediately onto your body. And heavy armor in D&D takes like 10 minutes to get in and out of. But there's a weird little hack that you could try and do to make sure you can try and pull this off. So, to pull off your armor super quickly as an action, you can use cast off armor. That'll allow you to doff your armor in one action. But getting into another suit of armor is the real challenge. So I took the feat Fey Touched. This allows us to boost one ability score by 1 point. So we're going to go ahead and round out our wisdom, bringing it to 16. So this is definitely gimmicky, and your DM is probably going to have to agree to allow this because it's a little weird. But it's kind of fun to play around with, and you're spending something to do it, so I doubt anybody's going to have a huge problem. Because Fey Touched allows you to learn Misty Step, essentially allowing you to teleport from one spot to another. So if you have an empty suit of armor in front of you, you can teleport right into that empty space. I know it probably doesn't work that way, but I kind of like the idea, so I'm just going to run with it. You can cast Misty Step for free as a bonus action once, and then it's added to your spell list. So if you do get some spell casting later, and we're going to do a multi-class, but you can spend a spell slot on it to cast it again whenever you need it. This also allows us one additional spell that we can choose, but it has to be either divination or enchantment. So let's just grab Hunter's Mark. We're going to be able to do at least 3 attacks throughout this build, and having Hunter's Mark will boost up our damage. We can also cast that once for free, and then we can go ahead and use spell slots on it in the future. But now, back to the build. At first level of Fighter, you get to choose a fighting style, and we want to make sure we can use that Hunter's Mark, and Erza does use a lot of weapons simultaneously, so in order to amp that up a bit, we're going to take the fighting style to weapon fighting. This allows us to dual wield weapons a little better, because now whenever you're attacking with your offhand, you can add your ability score modifier. Also at first level of Fighter, you get Second Wind, so you can regain some health as a bonus action once per short or long rest, and regain an amount equal to 1d10 plus your fighter level. Then at second level of Fighter, you get Action Surge, so once per short or long rest, you can take an entire extra action on your turn. Then at third level of Fighter, we get to choose a martial archetype, which is basically just a subclass. And you can move pretty quickly, you can move weapons around with your mind and magic, so we're going to take the subclass, Psi Warrior. The first feature from this subclass is Psionic Power. So you have some psionic energy dice that you can use. The dice are currently d6s, but they do level up if you get enough levels in this subclass. You can spend them on things like Protective Field, reducing the damage that you would take by a number that you rolled, plus your intelligence modifier, but we don't get to add our intelligence modifier because we dumped that stat. You can also use Psionic Strike, so if you hit somebody with a weapon attack, you can boost the damage by one of your psionic energy dice. Again, it would add your intelligence modifier, but trust me, there's a reason that we dumped intelligence. Then the last option to spend your psionic energy dice on is telekinetic movement, allowing you to move objects or creatures around with your mind. Then at fourth level of Fighter, you get an ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up our strength by 2 points because that generally helps most of our physical attacking that we're going to do. Then at fifth level of Fighter, we get extra attack, which is going to be very important because now we can do 2 attacks as our action and 1 as our bonus action if we're dual wielding. Then at sixth level of Fighter, we get get another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and boost up our strength one more time, maxing it out. Then at 7th level of fighter, we get more features from being a Psi Warrior. Specifically, Telekinetic Adept, giving you 2 abilities, such as Psi Powered Leap. So now we finally get that flying speed that I needed to figure out, considering you have different types of armor that give you the ability to fly. Your flying speed using this ability is only twice your movement speed, and it only lasts for the duration of your turn, but it's still flying speed, so it still counts. You can also use Telekinetic Thrust, so if you hit somebody with that psionic strike, you can try and knock them prone, but we're not going to use that too much because it relies, again, on your intelligence modifier. And I'm sure people are getting a little frustrated as to why I dumped it at this point, but it's going to be very useful in just a second, because next we'll get one more level in fighter, which will give us one more ability score improvement, and we're going to boost up our wisdom by 2 points, and then we're going to do a multi-class, and we're going to be multi-classing into cleric. Multi-classing into cleric allows us to choose a subclass right away, and you're all about equipping armor and weapons and boosting them up in certain ways, or having just a lot of magical armor and weapons at your disposal. So with that in mind, we're going to choose the Forge domain. Being a Forge cleric gives us some bonus spells at our disposal, but it also gives us the feature Blessing of the Forge. So you can take any piece of armor or weaponry or anything that has at least some metal in it and make it magical, boosting its abilities by +1. Whether you're boosting your armor class by +1 or a weapon's overall abilities by +1, including both its attack and damage rolls. And I got to give a quick shout out to my Discord. They really kind of saved me on this build. I was trying to figure out ways to help Erza fly, and they were also giving additional recommendations onto how to make this build work. Salvador and Jas Maripin were giving me plenty of ideas for how to include the fly spell or ability, because initially I was just trying to think of the spell, and then Salvador kind of pointed out, hey, you can probably fly with being a Psi Warrior. And then Daniel Saffler chimed in, talking about how I should probably cast Sword Burst over and over again for swirling swords around me. But unfortunately, clerics don't get Sword Burst. But I was thinking about it, and it does very similar stuff to what Word of Radiance does. So we're going to take the cantrip Word of Radiance, but most of the time we're going to focus a bit more on straight up spell casting. There's only a couple first level spells that are going to help a ton, and the big one's going to be Shield of Faith, boosting up your armor class by +2, as if you're suddenly summoning a different type of armor to help you, or Searing Smite, boosting up the damage of one weapon attack, but it's another way to enchant your weapon, or deal fire damage on top of your magical weapon attack. Then at 2nd level of Cleric, you get Channel Divinity. And you can use this against undead stuff, but specifically as a Forge cleric, you get Artisan's Blessing, allowing you to summon into existence some metal object that could be armor or weaponry or whatever. Granted, it's not quite instant. This Channel Divinity requires you to do it for an hour, but it's still another way to summon armor and weapons into existence, so I'm going to count it. Then at 3rd level of Cleric, you get access to 2nd level spell slots. You automatically get the spell Heat Metal, which is generally pretty powerful if you're going up against anybody that's wielding any sort of metal object or wearing metal armor, because it just heats up the metal, and if they decide to hang on to it, or if they're stuck wearing it, they're taking that fire damage while at the same time having disadvantage on all of their attacks. But as far as spells you can choose, there's 2 that I would pick at this level. The first being Magic Weapon, because it's generally pretty good to be able to make your weapons magical. But Erza does send out weapons pretty regularly. They go flying at our enemies. And a great way to pull this off is with the spell Spiritual Weapon. You can summon a weapon into existence that is just made of magic, and you can control it with your bonus action, attacking more and more with your wisdom modifier. Then at 4th level of Cleric, you get another ability score improvement. So let's go ahead and max out that wisdom. Then at 5th level of Cleric, you get access to 3rd level spell slots. And the only spell I really want to focus on here is another one where you can have swirling weapons around you, and that's Spirit Guardians, because the guardians that you summon are going to be swirling around you in a 15-foot aura, and they appear however you want them to appear. So if you want them to be swirling swords or random pieces of metal or whatever, that's how you can pull this off. You'll be able to pull off being Erza very spot on, as long as you are a bit more creative with how you describe the spell. Then at 6th level of cleric, you get one more use of your channel divinity, and you get another feature from being a forge cleric, Soul of the Forge. So now no matter what, if you're wearing heavy armor, you automatically get a +1 to your armor class, and you can still enchant your armor on top of this, giving you another +1 to your armor class. You can wear a shield if you want, giving you another +2 to your armor class. Your armor itself can be plate armor, being 18 armor class by default, really making you pretty darn hard to hit. Then on top of all of that, this feature gives you resistance to fire damage, which could be pretty helpful in case you ever have to fight Natsu. Then at 7th level of cleric, you get access to 4th level spell slots, and you automatically get the spell Fabricate. So now you can actually create any type of armor or weapon that you want to. You just need some raw materials and the proficiency to be able to do it, but this spell basically allows you to skip all the crafting itself and just make it happen. Then at 8th level of cleric, you get another ability score improvement, and I'm going to take a feat because you're constantly dual wielding or your hands are occupied, and you want to make sure you can still cast while having your hands so full. And a lot of spells require you to wave your hands around in magical ways. So in order to ignore that, we're going to take the feat Warcaster. This gives you advantage on Constitution saving throws when it comes to concentrating on spells, and you already have proficiency in Constitution saving throws, so that means you're going to be concentrating pretty darn well. Whenever you get to make an opportunity attack, you can do so using a spell, as long as it's a single target spell. And then finally, you don't need your hands anymore to cast spells. You can just use the verbal components if you need to. Additionally, at 8th level, you get Divine Strike. So now once per turn, you can deal an extra 1d8 fire damage when you hit somebody with a weapon attack. Then at 9th level of cleric, you get access to 5th level spell slots. And we're going to take Animate Objects. So now you have even more swirling swords around you, but you can just pick up giant chunks of metal and have them swirl around and attack all of your enemies simultaneously. Additionally, you want to have some sort of holy sword or weaponry, and you can do that with the spell Holy Weapon, making it so your weapon shines and deals an extra 2d8 radiant damage. And if you want to dismiss the spell, you can blast out that radiant damage for another 4d8. Then at 10th level of cleric, you get Divine Intervention. So now you can ask a god for help, and the chance of that succeeding equals 10% right now, because you have to roll a d100 and you have to roll equal to or less than your cleric level. If you do so, then whatever deity that you're talking to has to respond in some way, hopefully helping you out, but this is kind of at the DM's discretion. Then at 11th level of cleric, you get access to 6th level spell slots. And if we don't have enough stuff to make it so there's swirling blades around you, now we can cast Blade Barrier, making just a wall of swirling blades that deals 6d10 slashing damage. Then finally at 12th level of cleric, you get your last ability score improvement. And we do plenty of fighting with 2 weapons, and I want to be able to boost that up just a little bit, because frankly, I don't know what else to really do with this unless I was to take Magic Initiate to try and get Sword Burst or whatever. But that seems like kind of a waste considering all the other stuff we can do already. So I'm going to take the feat Dual Wielder. So now we can grab much larger weapons in each hand, not forcing us to rely on light weapons anymore. And if we're dual wielding weapons, we get another +1 to our armor class. Not to mention, you're constantly summoning multiple weapons into existence, and this feat allows you to both sheath and unsheath 2 weapons at once. I know it's a little bit of a soft landing there, but I generally like this build and it was kind of fun to play around with. It was requested both in the comment section and over on my Patreon, so hopefully I did it justice. So if you want to build in the future, let me know in the comments down below. And if you like D&D content, make sure to subscribe, because apparently that makes it so you roll more nat 20s in your D&D sessions. If you want access to the character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon, like some of these amazing people that help support this channel, or some of the especially awesome player character patrons: Crembro, Natron209, Johnny Dyer, Kevin Shirley, That Funny Man 57, Joshua Maynard, CGC 2014, Afstorm, Elisa Martinez, Panda Milkshake, Ted Z, Andrew Nobles, Karkat Kitsune, Decker Joint, Z13, Viral Nerevar, Daniel Galvin, and the Dino 21. Then going above and beyond that are my Dungeon Master level patrons that I play D&D with: Julia B. de Oliveira, Shane Gilroy, Daniel Saffler, Comment ZX, Cyberciety, Salvador, Devin Happy, and Keelan Kilo Kilo. Then going above and beyond anything I ever imagined is my god tier level patron, GameStake. He really helps support this channel, and a very special thank you to him. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button. And I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you want to play as Erza Scarlet from Fairy Tail in Dungeons & Dragons.